She cries for attention. Always has, my mother said, as she folded napkins that weren't for me. The voice came clean through the dining room wall. Not whispered. Not careful. Just ordinary. Like she was discussing the weather. She makes everything emotional. Everything, Aunt Ruth replied. I stood in the mudroom, my coat still zipped, snow melting in beads across the shoulders. I hadn't knocked. No one came to the door. The porch light was on, but for someone else. She's probably crying already, Mom added. If she even shows up. I hadn't spoken. I hadn't been seen. My name is Elise Warren. I'm 36 years old. I run a family medicine clinic just outside town. We handle about 40 patients a week, checkups, blood pressure management, prenatal care, end-of-life discussions. Some days I change dressings. Some days I tell someone they're dying, but to them, I'm still just the girl who cried when Savannah colored over my science project in 2nd grade. They never asked why I cried. It was a handmade paper volcano. I stayed up until midnight trying to get the vinegar ratio right. Savannah smeared glitter glue across the base and called it more fun. Mom laughed. She just wanted to help, she said. I was 8. The casserole in my hands was starting to cool. I'd baked it myself, chicken and leek, Mom's favorite. Brought it over after closing up clinic, thinking maybe this year would be quiet. No performances. No jabs. I'd told myself that before. I didn't open the dining room door. I didn't make a sound. She's always been fragile, Mom said again, her voice lower this time. Crying isn't a response. It's a weapon with her. She's exhausting, Aunt Ruth murmured. I just don't have the energy to deal with her anymore, Mom finished. Let her cry. It's what she does best. Someone laughed. Probably Savannah. I left the casserole on the entryway bench. No name. No note. No announcement. As I turned to go, I caught sight of my old boots, tucked under the stairs. Size 6, tan leather, scuffed toe. I'd worn them the winter I got my white coat. The last Christmas I was invited to, Mom told people. I couldn't make it that year. I'd brought wine. I wasn't allowed in. Savannah planned something more upbeat, she texted later. She always did it. Back at my car, I sat behind the wheel and waited for the dome light to fade. My breath fogged the windshield. Inside the house, someone had put music on, piano jazz, the kind I used to play in middle school. They had used my old recipe for the casserole. I'd left the card taped inside the baking dish. It was how I tested whether they'd use it. They always did. I never got the dish back. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with a message. Savannah, dinner went really well. Sorry you couldn't come. Mom said you'd probably be working. She always sent it like that. A tiny slice of plausible deniability. I didn't answer. I pulled into my driveway. Clinic lights still on upstairs. Carla must have stayed late finishing payroll. I sat in the dark for a while, fingers on the wheel, stomach hollow. Then I unlocked the front door, went straight to the filing cabinet, and pulled out a labeled folder from the 3rd drawer. Folder 1, uninvited. Inside, printouts. Screenshots of past group texts where my name had been removed. Photo of the Christmas Eve place cards, mine spelled Elsa, then scratched out. The catering invoice for Mom's birthday last year. Paid using my business account. I hadn't authorized it. When I called the company to correct the charge, the receptionist said, "Oh, Elise. We spoke last month. You confirmed everything over the phone." I didn't. They played the call. It wasn't my voice, just someone pretending to cry. It's for my mom, the voice said. My sister doesn't want to help, so I'm just trying to do this myself. That voice had been enough. The name on the order, Elise Warren, the callback number, Savannah's cell. I requested a copy of the recording. Marked it Exhibit A. Filed it. I didn't tell them I had it. When I was 9, I won the district spelling bee with the word cauterize. I remember the look on Mom's face when they handed me the plaque. Blank. She clapped too late, like it hadn't registered yet that I was the one standing on stage. Afterward, she told everyone I'd cried during the interview. She gets overwhelmed, she said, laughing as if it were a trait I'd always carried. I didn't cry. I'd simply gone quiet, the way I always did when I wasn't sure what I was allowed to feel. That plaque disappeared the following year. Savannah said she dropped it while dusting. Mom said, "It's just an old board. Don't be sentimental." There's a kind of memory you develop when you've been edited for years. Not the kind with photographs or albums, those get rearranged too easily. But memory in the shape of absence. What's missing from the fridge? Which frames are turned slightly away? Whose name was left off the birthday toast? I remember. They don't realize I remember everything. At 13, I got pneumonia. I begged to stay home, but Mom said, "It's just a cold." I collapsed in the school hallway 2 days later. When the nurse called home, Mom told her I was sensitive to stress. At 16, I made a birthday cake for Dad, the first one after his heart attack. I spent hours on it. Savannah brought out a boxed mix version right before dinner, poured icing from a jar, and handed him hers with a candle. No one touched mine. Mom said, she didn't mean to upstage you. Maybe. Next time don't go so heavy on the lemon. At 24, I passed step 2 of my medical boards. I sent a photo of the results to the family group chat. Only Carla, my cousin, replied, "Wow, that's huge." An hour later, Mom posted a photo of Savannah's new apartment with the caption, "Our star moves again." No mention of me. No reaction. I checked 3 times to be sure. At 28, I saved a toddler's life during a code blue at the clinic. CPR, epinephrine, O2 line. I came home late, still shaking, still wired. Mom called while I was heating up rice. She asked if I could help her look over Savannah's resume. She wanted to apply for a brand ambassador grant. I said I was exhausted. She paused, then said, "You know, Elise, not everything is about your job. Savannah's trying too. In her own way. In their version of my life, I am always reacting, never acting. Always the footnote, never the sentence. The worst part isn't even the erasure. It's the reframing. You take things too seriously. You were always more fragile than her. You always needed praise more than most. You get worked up about small things." They say these things with a sigh, like they've had to manage me since birth. Like I'm a problem they've patiently endured. Like I'm the one rewriting history, but I remember how Savannah pushed me into a table in 7th grade and Mom told the principal I bruised easily. I remember how Ruth said I'd misread tone when Dennis corrected my posture at Thanksgiving. I remember being told to let it go when I found out my emergency contact had been switched on Mom's health records without asking me. Savannah had done that. Told the nurse, "Elise is always busy with work. I handle these things." I didn't argue. I made a note. 2 months ago, I pulled up the family trust registration online. The public portion showed 3 names, Marion Warren, Savannah Warren, Dennis Warren. Mine wasn't listed. The link had been shared in a newsletter from the city's tax adjustment board, one of those check your status links I normally ignore. But I clicked, and there it was. Filed last spring. Savannah as co-executor. Dennis as financial power of attorney. I scrolled 3 times. My name never appeared. There had been no conversation. No request for signature. No, we were just updating things. Just silence. Like always, that same night, I found a charge. On my business card for a home contractor, someone I didn't know, from a town 2 hours away. When I called, they said, "Oh, Dr. Warren. Savannah said you'd be covering this as a gift to your mom. Is that not right?" I asked for the invoice. They emailed a photo. In the signature box, Elise Warren. Slanted. Neat. Familiar. It wasn't mine. They traced it from the thank you cards I used to print for patients. I still keep one taped above my desk at the clinic. Handwritten, clean. I saw the curve in this S, the way the E dips right before it rises. Identical. Someone had scanned it and lifted it. They hadn't even tried to change the pen pressure. I didn't report it. Not yet. I requested a mailed copy with a timestamp. When it arrived, I slipped it into a manila folder behind the front desk. I labeled the tab, handwriting, used. Without consent. Carla, who handles check-ins at the clinic, asked if everything was okay. I said yes. Then I told her I'd be changing all signature permissions in the system by end of week. She asked why. I said, "Some people don't realize where the real line ends." I didn't need her to understand the whole story. Not yet. Later that week, Mom sent a group text, "Family meeting next Thursday. Just a simple catch-up. No stress." "No stress," Savannah followed with, "We'll loop you in this time, Elise. Don't worry, you don't need to prepare anything." It sounded generous. Casual, but I knew that tone. It's the one they used right before saying I was reading too much into it. It's the tone of a trap disguised as an olive branch. I texted back, "Sounds good. I'll bring something of my own." And then I made a list. 3 items. The fake invoice. The tax registration printout. The voice recording from the catering order, not for confrontation. Not yet. I didn't want drama, but I did want witnesses. I booked a consult with the family lawyer. I didn't tell them. When Mr. Huxley asked what I needed, I didn't say much. Just showed him the list. He read quietly, hands folded. Then asked, "Are you seeking to contest anything yet?" "Not yet," I said. He asked if I wanted to draft a statement. I said I already had. "Would you like it read aloud?" He asked. "I'd like it filed first," I said. "Then read when they least expect it." He nodded. "You'll need to notarize." "I will." That night, I went home and reread everything. Every note, every text, every charge, every edit. I wasn't surprised anymore. Not even angry, just ready. I don't cry like I used to. I document. I wasn't supposed to see the envelope. It came with the week's mail, tucked between 2 pharmaceutical reps' flyers and a reminder about the town clinic board renewal. Carla brought it in, already opened, thinking it was junk. The paper inside had creases, like someone had folded it in a hurry. The return address read Halpern Custom Cabinets, a name I didn't recognize. The invoice was for a kitchen remodel, not mine.it. Listed Marion Warren as the client, and below that, under financial backer, it said Elise Warren. Then a checkmark beside, authorized by cosigner. It stopped me. Not because of the amount, though $14,980 was not a number you blink at, but because of what was attached. A photocopy of my signature, not a digital stamp. A traced, slightly trembling version of my handwriting. Off just enough to make your stomach drop. I'd seen that version of my name before, in birthday cards Savannah mailed to old family friends and signed on my behalf. She'd say, "I figured you forgot," and I always let it go. But now the same swoop in the W, the loop on the L, had migrated onto a financial contract. An agreement I never touched. I didn't call Mom. I didn't call Savannah. I called the cabinet company. A man named Joel answered. Friendly, too familiar. "Oh hey, Dr. Warren. Everything okay with the countertop measurements?" I said nothing. "Wait, is this not about the backsplash material?" I told him calmly that I hadn't authorized anything. There was a pause. Then, "Oh, I mean, your sister handled everything. She said you were donating it for Mother's Day." I asked him to email me the original contract. He said he already had. To my clinic email. I hung up and checked the inbox. There it was, timestamped, marked read, sent last Thursday at 2:17 p.m. I was with a patient then, a diabetic grandmother, who'd shown me the bruising from a previous ER visit. I clicked open the contract. It looked official. Neatly typed, notarized digitally, but the signature on the bottom was a cut and paste from a prescription pad I'd written 3 years ago. I recognized the specific pen skip in the cross of the T. Same pen. Same pressure. Point. I'd tossed that pad when it ran dry. Someone had scanned it. I printed the contract, highlighted the signature, and wrote "See Source" in red ink. Then I went to the back closet, pulled a half-filled storage box marked Clinic Archive, Old Scripts, and flipped through the carbon copies. The prescription it came from was still there. Cephalexin 500 mg, take 3x/day, written for a Savannah L. Warren sinus infection. No insurance. The date, March 17th, 3 years ago. I held them up side by side. Perfect match. My handwriting, copied from a moment when she needed help, now used to make me responsible for something I didn't agree to, didn't benefit from, and wasn't even told about. The part that hit hardest wasn't the signature. It was the note scrawled in the margin of the contract. Just like old times, Elise always takes care of things. Don't worry. That wasn't written for the cabinet company. That was written for someone else to see. To reassure whoever needed justification that I'd always been the one to carry weight without complaint. I slid the printout into a plastic sleeve. Added it to a second binder. Labeled, Property, Coerced Consent. Later that afternoon, Mom sent a group message. "Big thank you to Elise for making the remodel possible. I know you didn't want the fuss, but your generosity doesn't go unnoticed." Savannah followed up with a string of hearts and, "She's always been the real backbone of this family." 2 days ago, I'd stood in her driveway watching her host a backyard wine tasting for her brand partnership. She didn't wave when she saw me across the street. Just raised her glass and turned her back. That same night, Dennis called me for the first time in months. He asked if I'd considered helping with the property taxes. "Just this year, it's been tight." I asked who told him to call me. He paused. "We all just thought you might step up." I said I'd think about it. Then I emailed Mr. Huxley, subject line, "Request to review property paperwork, urgent." He replied within the hour. Short. Precise. Appointment confirmed. Thursday. Bring everything. That night, I stayed at the clinic until close. Carla left at 6. I turned off the front lights and unlocked the supply cabinet. Pulled down the fireproof box where we keep employment contracts, leases, old reimbursement claims. I checked every page that bore my name. I found 3 more documents I hadn't remembered signing. All of them were financial. All of them benefited someone else. Point 1 stood out, a contractor agreement, signed 4 months ago, listing me as the designated guarantor for a household loan. I didn't remember the company. But I remembered the font. Savannah uses a specific font when she types invoices for her side business. Georgia italic. Slightly curved quotes, always double-spaced. She thinks it makes things look vintage. The same font appeared here. She drafted this. I didn't call her. I called Megan. We hadn't spoken since med school, aside from liking each other's posts occasionally. But she worked in state compliance now. Last I heard, she audited records for healthcare fraud and power of attorney violations. She answered on the second ring. "Elise?" I said, "I think my name's been used on things I never signed." "Medical?" "No. Financial." There was a pause. "How many things?" Too many for it to be careless. She didn't ask for details. Just said, send what you have. I'll tell you what's real. I did. The next morning, she called me back. That prescription skin you mentioned, she said. That's illegal use under state forgery codes. You want to open a formal case? Not yet, I said. She waited. You're building something. Yes. You want them to hear it first. All together. Yes. She exhaled once. Then make it loud. I didn't reply. Just closed the blinds and reached for a pen. This time, I wrote the letter myself. The centerpiece was a tower of roses. Ivory, blush, and champagne pink, spiraling upward like some kind of edible cathedral. I stared at it on my phone screen, zoomed in until I could see the gold flakes pressed between the petals. Savannah had posted it around 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday. Caption, celebrating Mom, for everything she's given us. Nota. No Minston. No, us, I recognized. The dining table was covered in white linen. There were candles shaped like peonies. My mother sat at the head in a velvet blazer I hadn't seen before, holding a wine glass like it belonged in her hand. She was smiling. There were 12 people seated. All women. All dressed in soft colors. I recognized Aunt Ruth, a few of Savannah's friends from college, 2 neighbors I used to babysit for. There was even Carla's cousin, who once called me the quiet doctor who doesn't have kids yet. My chair wasn't empty. It didn't exist. They had printed menus. Each one read, to Marion, who taught us what strength looks like. I read it 3 times. That phrase, what strength looks like, was something I'd once said to a patient's daughter, who was shaking in my exam room after watching her father lose his memory. I remembered how I told her, you're doing what strength looks like. Even when it doesn't feel like it. She'd cried. Thanked me. Hugged me. Savannah had turned that phrase into something else. Something marketable. Point 1 slide over, she'd posted a reel. Panning the table. Ambient music. Laughter. A toast I couldn't fully hear. Then a close-up of Mom holding a framed photo. It was from my graduation. Med school. Me in the middle. Savannah beside me, only now, the frame cut me out completely, just Mom and Savannah. Cropped tight, expertly. You wouldn't know I'd ever been in it.in. The caption, Savannah wrote, 2009, the year everything changed. It had .it was the year I stopped sending invitations. I put the phone down, turned it face down on the kitchen counter, and stared at the casserole cooling beside me. Baked that morning, before clinic. Caramelized shallot and mushroom, Mom's favorite. I'd made it from memory. She'd taught me the recipe when I was 16. Back then, she used to say I had good hands. Gentle hands. Doctor's hands. She stopped saying that once Savannah started posting yoga tutorials online. The smell filled my house, warm and earthy. I covered it with foil and didn't bring it. One had asked me to. The next morning, I received a notification. A new charge on my clinic's secondary card. I kept that account for inventory and low-value supplier invoices. Nothing large. The charge, $1,942.17. Vendor, a local floral design firm. Same one Savannah tagged in the video. I called them. A woman answered, Elise Warren's office. I said, you processed a payment yesterday? She replied quickly. Yes, it was an urgent arrangement. Delivered same day. Your assistant confirmed it. I don't have an assistant, I said. A pause. Sorry, your sister? She asked. She signed the authorization. Said you were gifting it. Said it was a family surprise. I asked to see the authorization. She sent it over within 10 minutes. There it was again. My name. Neatly typed, with a soft cursive digital signature that looked exactly like the one I'd stopped using a year ago. Savannah had copied it off an old invoice receipt. I remembered the way the W tilted to the left unnaturally, the result of signing while holding a phone. I opened my backup folder and found the original. Matched it, then I saw the billing. Note, please ensure the cards say, for the woman who gave us everything. From all of us. All. I hadn't even known there was a dinner. I forwarded the signature to Megan. She called me an hour later. This isn't sloppy, she said. This is deliberate. Coordinated. I stayed quiet. You ready to make it official? She asked. Not yet, I said. Megan waited. Because you want them to hear it first. Yes. She paused. Let me know when you're ready to name the pattern. That phrase stayed with me. Name the pattern. That night, I laid out every paper I had across my dining table. Bills, printouts, side-by-side copies. I numbered each incident, each misuse of identity, each instance where my silence had been weaponized against me. I kept count. 8 separate financial transactions. 3 forged authorizations. 2 social posts that directly erased me. 1 dinner I paid for but wasn't invited to. The next morning, I received a message from Savannah. Savannah, hey, heard you saw the pics. It was last minute. Hope you understand. We didn't want to stress you out, Mom said you've been quiet lately, so we figured space was better. Space.as if I hadn't been breathing through walls for years. I didn't reply. But I printed the message. I took a pen. Underlined, Mom said you've been quiet lately. They weren't erasing me accidentally, they were coordinating my absence. I slid the message into a sleeve. Labeled the back, pretext justification language, see cross-use, at the clinic. Carla asked if I needed help organizing tax folders. I told her no. Then I locked my office door and started writing. The letter began without greeting. To those who erased me and expected me not to notice, I kept everything. I didn't know how long it would be. I didn't care, but every sentence I wrote pulled one chair back from their table. Mr. Huxley called it a casual family check-in. I knew better. He scheduled it for a Thursday afternoon, just after Savannah got back from her yoga retreat and before Dennis had to head upstate for meetings. Marion would bake something. Ruth would bring old photos. On the phone, Mr. Huxley's tone was dry, but I could hear the shape of it behind the words. Containment. They'd gotten nervous. I wore a navy blouse and a trench coat. Professional. Cold weather neutral. Not something that said morning or defense. I closed the clinic early. Left a note on the door, out for required review. I didn't say who's. By the time I arrived, the conference room at Huxley and Niles smelled faintly of lemon polish and decaf. Savannah was already seated at the long glass table, arms crossed, glossy lips pulled into a semi-smile. She looked like someone about to negotiate a brand deal, not attend a family review. Marion greeted me with a hug I didn't want. Her perfume had changed, something expensive and musky, the kind that leaves a trail. Dennis stood near the window, hands in his pockets like a man waiting for a car service. Ruth offered me a store-bought cookie and said, "Don't be nervous, sweet pea. This isn't about digging things up." I didn't speak. Just sat. Unbuttoned the coat. Waited. Mr. Huxley entered exactly on time, carrying a manila envelope. He didn't look at me. Not yet. He greeted everyone else first, cordial, calm. Then finally, he turned to me, and nodded once. That nod held weight. "Before we begin," he said, placing the envelope on the table, "I've been asked to read aloud a letter provided to me in advance. Signed and verified." Savannah's eyes narrowed. Marion opened her mouth but didn't speak. Dennis shifted his weight. Ruth chuckled lightly and said, "A letter? Oh dear, did someone bring homework?" Mr. Huxley didn't respond. He slid the envelope open and removed 7 stapled pages. No fancy. No legal jargon. Just my handwriting, transcribed and printed. Clean. He didn't start from the top. He read from the middle. Paragraph 17, he said, line 1. Then he began, on March 14th, a wire transfer of $11,470 was processed through an account opened under my name, Elise Marion Warren, ending in -0987. I did not authorize this transaction. Attached are the call records confirming I was at my clinic with 3 patients during the time of verification. The signature provided is not mine. It matches Savannah's, as seen in Exhibit B. Savannah's lips parted. But still, no sound. Mr. Huxley continued, in May, a property tax deferral application was submitted under my name for a residence I do not own. The handwriting on the declaration matches Aunt Ruth's samples from prior documentation. I was unaware of this filing until a copy arrived, mis-delivered, to my clinic's billing address. Ruth blanched. The most egregious incident occurred in July, when a backdated medical directive was submitted to Dr. Harold Stein's office, requesting access to private family health records under the claim of emergency proxy. The emergency listed was emotional distress. The handwriting, again, was not mine. Silence. Mr. Huxley paused. No one looked at me. They looked at him, as if the pages themselves were slanderous, not the actions behind them. I didn't move. My hand stayed folded in my lap. My face didn't flicker. Then he turned the page, let her cry. It's what she does best. That's what Marion said. Mr. Huxley didn't elaborate. He just read it. Flat. And somehow, the silence after that was louder than anything he'd said before. Marion finally spoke. That's completely out of context. Mr. Huxley raised an eyebrow. You deny saying it? I didn't know. She heard me, Marion corrected. Savannah turned toward her. Wait. You actually said that? Marion didn't answer. I kept my gaze on the glass water pitcher. Condensation pooled near the base. A slow drop slid toward the table's edge. I tracked it like a heartbeat. Exhibit D, Mr. Huxley said, flipping to the last page. This includes notarized statements from Dr. Elise Warren's compliance officer, Megan Stone, confirming timestamped communications and third-party witness verification for all incidents cited. Ms. Stone has offered to provide formal documentation. To state authorities should further investigation be necessary. Dennis stood. This is a shakedown. No, Mr. Huxley said. This is notice. Savannah's voice rose. So what? She's mad about a couple of forms. We're family. People make mistakes. That's not what this is, I said. Calm, even, measured. Savannah turned to me. Then what is it? A record, I replied. Of patterns. And intent. Marian pushed her chair back. You've always been overly sensitive, Elise. You read into things. You make them bigger than they are. That's always been your problem. Mr. Huxley cut in. The letter closes with a request. He glanced at me for confirmation. I nodded. He read the final paragraph. I am requesting removal of my name from all shared financial instruments associated with the Warren household, including but not limited to, the joint caretaker authorization. Created in 2021, the deferred tax sponsorship listed in municipal housing records, and any medical proxies submitted under duress or without direct consent. I will be submitting these requests formally in writing to the state registry and medical board within 5 business days. This is not a discussion. It is a declaration. He folded the pages. Placed them neatly back into the envelope. No one moved, I assume, he said dryly. There are no questions. Dennis said, we should have burned those files. Savannah hissed, shut up. Aunt Ruth stood and walked to the refreshment tray. Her hands were trembling. The cookie she picked up cracked in half before she bit into it. She chewed like her mouth had gone dry. Marian didn't say anything more. She just looked at me, long, quiet, unreadable, but she didn't say I was wrong. That was enough. When I left the room, I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked. My coat swung behind me, the same rhythm it always had. But something in the air had shifted. They no longer saw me as soft. They saw me as inevitable, and for once, they were right. When Megan Stone called, I was adjusting the dosage chart for an elderly patient's blood pressure regimen. I didn't answer the first time. Or the second, the third time, I picked up. But said nothing. Elise, she said, voice low and deliberate. I need to show you something. We hadn't spoken since med school. Not since she took the state job and disappeared into the regulatory back end. I'd assumed we'd orbit quietly forever, 2 women who'd chosen to survive differently. I met her in the back corner of the diner on Sycamore Street. She wore the same gray blazer I remembered from our clinicals, pressed, severe, too formal for the Formica table between us. She didn't order coffee. Just slid a yellow legal envelope toward me, like it burned. Inside were 6 printed screenshots. Bank routing data, signature overlays, timestamp logs. This one's yours, right? She asked, tapping the second page. It was the old address. The partial social. The way I signed my W, with that awkward middle loop, they used it. Megan said quietly. Not just for access. For intent. As in, implied consent. I looked at the highlighted section. Dr. Elise Warren hereby confirms. I didn't finish reading it. They submitted this to one of our third-party review boards, she continued. Trying to reclassify the mortgage liability as shared family debt. Tied to elder care. They framed it as my idea. They used your name to qualify for the restructure. They said you agreed to carry the liability across generations. That you're part of the medical support system. I folded the paper once, then again. My palms were perfectly dry. Can you get me what they submitted before that? I asked. The original declaration. I already did. Megan slid me another copy. This time, the header was hand-annotated in blue ink. It's all public once it's sent to us. They just don't expect anyone to look. I stared at the signature again. It wasn't traced. It was practiced, not a child's game. Not a joke. It had weight behind it, Savannah's hand mimicking mine, curve by curve, like she'd studied it for weeks. What happens now? I asked. That depends, Megan replied. If I flag it formally, your name gets pulled into an audit. Even if you're the victim. It's how the system works. All parties touched by a flagged account get reviewed. So they make me look dirty even when they're the ones who lied. Unless, she said carefully, you build the case first. Quietly. Independently. Then when the match hits our system, you've already named the fraud. That's the only way you stay clean. I didn't nod. I didn't thank her. I just took the papers and left. When I got back to the clinic, my assistant Laura asked if I wanted to reschedule the afternoon patients. I said no. I updated Mrs. Winslow's medication schedule, did a follow-up with a diabetic teenager, and adjusted an injury clearance form for a factory worker with 3 slip discs. At420, I opened a new folder on my locked drive. I named it save_alt_authority_1. That night, I combed through 3 years of medical billing reports, not mine, theirs. I pulled up the accounts Mom had listed as family shared during the time Savannah was her proxy. I found overlaps. Names. Entered twice. A prescription for Xanax under a duplicate account that routed through a different address, mine. I didn't take Xanax. I remembered that month. It was when Mom called crying about the foundation leaks, said she was overwhelmed, that she couldn't breathe with all the weight on her chest. I'd driven over with an overnight bag and stayed in the guest room. Savannah never looked at me once that visit. But later that week, the Wi-Fi account was updated, and my name appeared on the utilities. When I asked, Mom said, "Oh, it's just easier that way. You're good with bills." I thought it was laziness. I didn't know it was groundwork.at. Midnight, I compiled the first visual, a timeline chart with entries, logins, and address changes. Each red arrow was an action Savannah took. Each green arrow was a record of something I never touched.at. The bottom, I added a quiet note: if this were a patient's chart, it would show prolonged manipulation, recurrent exploitation of emotional leverage. Medical term, familial coercion under disguise of care. It wasn't for the court.it was for Mr. Huxley. I wanted the lawyer to see what I saw, not just lines and signatures, but patterns. The cold method behind the performance. The next morning, I stopped by his office unannounced. His receptionist hesitated, but I said 4 words: "It's about my mother." He let me in.mr. Huxley was calm, older than I remembered, with reading glasses he didn't wear during the estate meeting. His desk was unnaturally clean. "I'm not here to file anything," I told him. "I just want you to read something." I placed the folder on the center of the desk. Thin. No cover letter. He opened it, scanning the first page. Then the second. He slowed on the third. "This isn't just financial," he said quietly. "No. It's architectural." He looked up. "They rebuilt their story using me," I said. Line by line. Until I wasn't missing, I was instrumental. The invisible backbone. The silent cosigner. He set the papers down. "Why now?" "Because the damage has already happened," I said. "This isn't to stop them. It's to record what they did." "And if I ask, who else knows?" "Only one," I replied. "A compliance officer. Off the record. For now." He leaned back. "You want this read aloud?" "Yes." "In the next meeting?" "Yes." He didn't argue. Just closed the folder and placed it inside his locked drawer. "I'll schedule something before month's end." Before I left, I turned once more. "Don't tell them it's coming." "I won't." That night, I walked past my mother's house. There was music playing from inside. Something cheerful and old-fashioned. Through the window, I saw Aunt Ruth at the table, laughing over wine. Savannah was showing someone a slideshow on her laptop. Photos. I recognized the frame. She'd used one from my clinic. A candid shot. Me helping a child walk after a knee brace fitting. My face half turned, smiling, unaware. Underneath, a caption: "Family means lifting each other." It was dated last month. I watched the room, the curated glow, the soft clink of glassware, the faces trained to believe their own theater. Then I walked home. I didn't cry. The next morning, I printed the same photo and placed it in a new folder titled Emotional Currency. If they wanted to tell stories, I would let them. I'd just make sure mine came last, and louder. The letter wasn't mailed. I handed it off myself, in a sealed envelope with no return address, on a Thursday afternoon while Savannah was tagging her latest clinic selfie, and Dennis was probably counting someone else's money. I drove past their driveway without slowing, turned onto the next block, and handed the envelope to the receptionist at Huxley and Minter Legal Services. It wasn't the act that felt heavy. It was the silence after. Like something had already started shifting under my feet, and I wasn't sure yet where the crack would appear. Mr. Huxley didn't call me back. Not that day, not the next. But a week later, I received a printed invitation. On cream card stock, family financial clarification meeting, requested by Marion Warren, hosted by legal counsel. I didn't smile. I read it twice. Then I tucked it under my clinic files and kept working. The meeting was set for Monday, 9 a.m. I showed up at 8:50. Alone. Hair pulled back. Black coat, no jewelry. I didn't need to look emotional. I needed to look like someone they hadn't seen in years. Someone they thought had disappeared the moment she stopped crying in front of them. Savannah arrived first. Full lashes, blush, holding a smart tablet like it was a clutch. She didn't look at me. Just scrolled. Her voice echoed as she greeted. The receptionist with a syrupy, "We're here for the estate clarification thing." Dennis followed, on a Bluetooth call, talking about interest rates and asset fluidity. He didn't hang up. Not even when he saw me sitting in the corner. Marion came last. Ruth wasn't far behind. They looked like they'd coordinated outfits, off-white shawls, matching beige heels. Like they thought this was brunch. Mr. Huxley entered at 9:02. Gray suit. Black binder. "Come. Thank you all for coming," he said, voice steady as a courtroom fan. "Before we begin, I've been asked to read something aloud. This letter was delivered to my office last week. No one blinked, but when he opened the binder and unfolded my letter, the room shifted. Savannah uncrossed and recrossed her legs. Marian leaned forward slightly, her eyes flicking toward me as if I might start crying right there in the chair. I didn't. Mr. Huxley began reading. No dramatic tone. Just the words, I, Elise Warren, daughter of Marian Warren and former joint contributor to all 3 household mortgages listed under the family trust, submit this record not in accusation, but in clarity. He kept going, every paragraph was a scalpel. Each line carved out the moments I'd buried, when my name was added to utility bills I never authorized, when my identity was used to renew pet insurance I'd never signed for, when Savannah filled out a home equity line, on behalf of Mom, using my social security number and a signature traced from a birthday card I once mailed. The air got thinner. Dennis's knee started bouncing. Marian tried to interrupt twice, once with a scoff, once with a hand gesture, but Mr. Huxley didn't stop. I have enclosed copies of the original email confirmations from both the veterinarian's office and the utility provider, showing changes made from my clinic IP address during dates when I was in surgery, rendering it physically impossible for me to have been the one who executed those changes. Savannah spoke. This is ridiculous. No one's accusing her of anything serious. It was just to streamline the process. Mom gets anxious with forms. But Mr. Huxley turned the page. While my mother has long considered my silence evidence of emotional instability, I would like it to be on record that silence is not confusion. Nor is it compliance. I have known. For a long time. Savannah's mouth opened. Then shut. Marian exhaled through her nose. A slow, measured sound. Let her finish her performance, she said. It's what she does best. The irony hung in the air like dust. I didn't move, but Mr. Huxley did. He removed a second envelope from his binder. This notice is from the Office of State Financial Compliance, he said, which was informed of several suspected signature violations attached to accounts that named Dr. Elise Warren as co-owner without her consent. He passed it to Dennis. Dennis didn't take it. Ruth reached for it instead. Skimmed the top page. Froze. Savannah snatched it next. This isn't real. Elise wouldn't. You wouldn't escalate something like this. Her voice cracked. Not out of fear. Out of calculation. She was looking for the angle where this could still be turned into a misunderstanding. I looked at her. Not long. Not cruelly, just long enough for her to see what she hadn't noticed before. I wasn't reacting. That was the loss she didn't know how to negotiate. This isn't criminal, Marian said flatly, but her tone trembled. It's family. It's internal. Mr. Huxley cleared his throat. It may remain internal, Mrs. Warren. That will depend entirely on how you respond to Dr. Warren's proposal. Marian blinked. Proposal? He opened a third page. I already knew what it said. My conditions were simple. I wanted my name fully removed from all financial instruments within 10 business days. I wanted a written acknowledgement that any use of my information had occurred without my consent. I wanted reimbursement for the insurance claims filed in my name. And I wanted a public statement, handwritten, signed by Marian and Savannah, to be kept in Mr. Huxley's file, acknowledging my exclusion from all prior financial meetings had been intentional. I'm not signing that, Savannah said. You want us to admit we committed fraud? I didn't say fraud, I replied, the first words I'd spoken all morning. My voice wasn't loud. Just real. I said intentional. Dennis leaned back. And if we don't? Mr. Huxley didn't answer. I did. Then I proceed with what Megan and her office have prepared, I said. Ruth narrowed her eyes. Megan who? Savannah answered before she meant to. Stone. Megan Stone. From the state board. She went to high school with Elise. The realization hit in waves. Marian's fingers gripped her shawl. Dennis finally looked directly at me. For the first time in years, you're bluffing, he muttered. I didn't respond. Mr. Huxley placed a final page on the table. Here is the signed preliminary inquiry notice from Ms. Stone's department. He said. It's not public yet. But it will be. If this matter isn't resolved. No one spoke for a full 30 seconds, then Marian stood up. She didn't look at me. She looked at the wall, as if some distant reflection of her daughter might still be manageable in her mind. Then she turned to Mr. Huxley. We'll review the letter. He nodded. She left without a word to me. Ruth followed. Savannah lingered. You planned this, she said. You made it look like you disappeared, like you were too fragile, and then you waited. I stood up slowly. Picked up my coat. No, I said. I was watching. That's different. She watched me walk out. Not crying. Not broken. Not even angry, just finished. Outside, the air was colder than I expected. The wind pushed through my coat and down into my sleeves. I let it. I didn't rush to the car. I didn't pull out my phone. I just stood there for a moment, breathing. There would be more steps, but the silence I carried wasn't hollow anymore. It was sharp. Cut to fit. Unapologetically mine. Mr. Huxley folded the letter when he finished. Silence sat in the room like fog, heavy, clinging to every breath no one dared take. Savannah looked pale for once. Not because she felt guilt, I don't think. She even knows the word, but because she hadn't anticipated the receipts. The names. The matching account numbers. The routing transfers I traced back to the day Dennis had that urgent loan for roof repairs that somehow aligned with the date Savannah flew to Cozumel. Marion cleared her throat. She wasn't crying. She never cried. But she had the face of someone deciding whether to play dumb or beg. She chose neither. Instead, she looked at Mr. Huxley and said, "That's one version of things." I didn't respond. I'd said everything I needed in that letter. With every calm sentence and dry fact, I'd laid a minefield. One they'd walked into willingly. That night, I didn't go home. I went back to the clinic, to the office upstairs with the frosted window and the half-dead ficus in the corner. I slept on the couch I kept for late shifts. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and lemon tea. I liked that. It smelled like control. The next morning, a new email from Megan Stone waited in my inbox. Subject: cross-verification results complete. She didn't write much in the body. Just a phrase, "It's worse than we thought. Do you want to move forward?" I clicked the attachment. The spreadsheet was color-coded, green for verified matches, red for fraudulent overlaps. My name showed up 21 times. My social security number was used to backdate 3 insurance policies and reassign a living trust into a shadow holding company registered to Dennis. But the most important part wasn't on the sheet. It was a name I hadn't heard in years. Meryl Dawson. She was my mother's accountant from when I was in high school. A quiet woman with sad eyes who always wore oversized cardigans and never spoke unless asked. Megan had found her name on an authorization trail buried behind a false notary stamp. That trail linked directly to a line of credit opened by family proxy under my name. One Marion had the audacity to sign with a flourish. I called Megan immediately. "Do you think Meryl knew?" Megan paused. "No. I think she was used. And I think she might be willing to talk." It took 2 days to track her down. She lived 3 towns over now. Retired early, no kids, a widowed cat owner with a garden she didn't tend. When I showed up at her door and said my name, her face dropped, not in fear, but in recognition. And then shame. She didn't invite me in. She stepped out onto the porch, wrapped in a blanket, and said softly, "I tried to tell your mom not to. She told me it was for your benefit. That you were too emotional to handle large sums." I didn't flinch. I nodded. "I didn't notarize anything," Meryl added quickly. "I swear. She had someone else do it. Or said she did. I left after that. I didn't want to be involved." "You were the last clean name on the trail," I said. "And they knew it." She didn't deny it. Before I left, she handed me a manila envelope. "She gave me this to destroy." I didn't. "I thought you might come looking one day." Inside was a handwritten agreement. Not typed, not formal. Just scrawled in Marion's handwriting and signed by Dennis and Savannah at the bottom. It listed what I owed for being allowed to step back from family duties. They'd calculated it, almost $87,000. Broken down by category: emotional labor offloaded, property left vacant, default responsibilities transferred to Savannah. I stood in the driveway after reading that list under the cloudy sky. My hands didn't shake. My face didn't move. I folded it neatly and tucked it into my coat. The next morning, I booked a single appointment slot on my calendar. Just one. Savannah Warren, 10 a.m., consultation. No reason. No notes. Just the name. She arrived exactly on time. Lipstick too bright. Boots too clean. A cardigan that cost more than most people's rent and hair curled in that way that screams. I woke up like this but took 90 minutes. She walked in with that performative ease and said, "You wanted to see me?" I didn't offer coffee. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat, crossed her legs, and waited. I slid the manila envelope across the table. She opened it. "Read the top line." Then she laughed. "Seriously? You're bringing this up now?" I said nothing. Savannah leaned forward, her voice low. "You were never around. You made your choices. You distanced yourself." "No," I said. "You pushed me out. There's a difference." She shrugged. "You always took everything so personally." "And you never took anything personally," I replied. "That's why it was so easy to forge my name. To reroute my identity. It was just paperwork to you." She tilted her head. "Are you threatening me?" "No. I'm informing you. The compliance case is open. Megan Stone filed it last week. Meryl Dawson's statement is included. And that trust you thought was buried? It's been unfrozen." Her eyes narrowed. I stood You should prepare. For what? I looked her in the eye. To lose. She didn't slam the door when she left. She floated out like she still had the upper hand. That night, I sent 3 letters. One to Mr. Huxley, requesting formal probate investigation for the trust documents tied to Marion's home. 1 to Megan, approving her to release the findings to the regulatory board and file civil action if the family attempted retaliation, and 1 to Marion, handwritten. 2 lines. You said I cry too easily. That I'm too sensitive. This isn't crying. This is remembering. And remembering everything. I didn't send it yet. I sealed it. Dated it. The next morning, I arrived at the clinic early. Carla, my nurse, said there'd been calls, Savannah asking to reschedule, Marion wanting to discuss medical matters privately, Dennis requesting a clean bill of health for insurance reapplication. I gave the same answer to all 3, not available. At noon, a courier delivered a single envelope to the clinic.no return address. Inside was a photo. Me, age 6, smiling in a pink raincoat on a porch step. Behind me, barely visible, was Savannah holding an umbrella over her own head, not mine, written on the back. She always needed more. You were fine on your own. No signature. I placed it face down on the table. I didn't tear it. I didn't burn it. I filed it right next to the list Marion never meant me to read. Then I picked up the phone, called Megan, and said, push the next step. It's time. I didn't cry in the parking lot. I sat in my car with the engine off, watching my mother's reflection in the glass doors of Mr. Huxley's office. She was still standing inside, not speaking. Savannah had stormed out first, heels sharp, mouth clenched. Dennis followed half a minute later, not with urgency, just that silent simmer of a man who suddenly realized he's no longer the one pulling strings. Ruth had pretended to forget her scarf, just so she could linger. Maybe salvage some dignity. She left without it. Inside, Mr. Huxley was sitting alone now, smoothing down the copy of my letter like it might leap off the table. He didn't glance toward the door. He wouldn't. He'd done what I asked. Read every word aloud, without skipping a breath. That was all I needed from him. I drove to the clinic. Not home. Home didn't feel like mine yet, not fully. But the clinic. The walls smelled like antiseptic and lemon oil, the reception light buzzed faintly overhead, and the corkboard still had the thank you note from the Jenkins family thumbtacked under a paper snowflake. My name was still on the window. Elise Warren, MD. That was enough. By 10 a.m., I'd filed the final batch of paperwork with Megan's office. Not as a formality, she made that clear. You know, she'd said on the phone the night before, they forged a federal tax record under your name. That's not family drama. That's criminal. The conversation had ended with her advising me to let her handle the state-level filing. But she also added, if I were you, I'd change your power of attorney status first. Quietly. Just in case someone tries to move fast. So I had. That morning, I walked into City Hall with the same expression I wore when delivering a diagnosis, calm, firm, unshakable. The woman behind the desk didn't question a thing. She notarized the new designation without blinking, and just like that, Marion Warren no longer had access to my name. 2 days later, I got a text from Ruth. We all make mistakes. Maybe next time, talk to us first? I didn't respond. But I did archive it. One thing Ruth didn't realize, by texting me, she confirmed she'd known. The phrasing was wrong if she hadn't. It wasn't, what happened? It was, we all make mistakes. That went into the case file. Savannah posted a quote on her social media account. Letting go is a form of power. Captioned under. A photo of her pouring wine, with Marion laughing beside her. The irony didn't even sting. I saved the post anyway. Megan said, people always confess on the internet. They just call it branding. By the end of that week, the Financial Compliance Board had frozen the disputed accounts. Dennis's name came up on 2 checks that were processed with my routing number. He tried to argue that it was a family misunderstanding. But Megan had already run voice matching software against a recorded call Savannah made to the bank, pretending to be me. The tone she used? Fragile. Timid. Exactly what they trained people to believe I was. That call, once verified, became the central exhibit. The next Monday, I mailed my resignation letter to the estate attorney. Not from the clinic, just from anything tying me to the Warren family fund. I no longer wanted my name on the house deed, the family trust, or the so-called education loan my mother claimed she took for both girls. There was no both. Just Savannah. And a silent bank trail that traced every transaction back to my birth certificate. Aunt Ruth texted again that Thursday, Marion's been in bed all day. You broke her heart. I left it unread. Instead, I signed the lease renewal. For my clinic. 5 more years. Under my name alone. The landlord didn't flinch when I requested an upgrade on the lobby. He just nodded and said, "You've always paid on time. You're solid." That word, solid, landed deeper than he knew. I cleared out the guest room in my house that weekend. Not because anyone was visiting, but because I finally had the energy to remove the boxes Marion had gifted me over the years. They were mostly symbolic things, old yearbooks, childhood trophies, one of Savannah's broken necklaces I apparently used to love. None of them were mine. Not really. I donated everything. Except the photograph. It was a print from a family reunion I didn't attend. Marion, Dennis, Savannah, Ruth. All posed under the oak tree behind Mom's house. In the corner of the image, barely visible, someone had taped my face onto a figure. Not even well, just a half smile lifted from a high school photo, cut and glued onto someone else's body. I stared at it for a long time. Not in anger. Just recognition. That's how they wanted me, included, but replaceable. Present, but silent. I took a lighter from the kitchen drawer and burned the photo, piece by piece, over the sink. No fanfare. No tears. Just smoke curling upward, quiet and final. Then I sat down and started writing this. Not to them. But to you, because if you're still listening, still watching, it means something in my story echoed with yours. Maybe you've been called dramatic, sensitive, too much. Maybe they told you to lower your voice, fix your tone, stop overreacting. Maybe they edited you out of the narrative but still signed your name when it was useful. Here's what I've learned: silence isn't weakness. It's storage. Everything you didn't say, they used against you. But everything you saved? You'll use that to end it. People will call you fragile to excuse the damage they do. They'll paint you as unstable so they can keep the inheritance stable. They'll hand the keys to someone else while telling you to be grateful for the porch, and when you finally speak, not scream, not cry, just speak, they'll say you're cruel. Because silence protected their comfort. And your clarity shatters it, but don't let that stop you. You're not too sensitive. You're observant. You're not too emotional. You're awake. If you've been erased, you don't need revenge. You need records. Receipts. A spine made of stone and a voice that doesn't waver when the lawyer reads your letter out loud. If you've made it this far, I want you to do one thing: don't explain yourself. Not to them. Not anymore. Stand where they can't edit you. And let the silence speak for itself. Thank you for staying through the whole story. If you want to hear the next one, someone else's battle, someone else's quiet revenge, subscribe. I'll be here. Watching, remembering, recording. Just like you.